Kids say the scariest shit sometimes, and if you've ever been around kids, you know this to be true. So today, that is exactly what I'll be covering. Our last story of the night takes us to New York. There's a young girl, a mom and her dad, and they move into this older home in New York. Now, the girl doesn't have very many friends at her school, so she's kind of isolated at school. She comes home, her parents are pretty busy, so she doesn't really have much company at home. Then one day, as she's playing on this property, and it's a giant property, she meets two kids. Now, the kids were a boy and a girl around her age, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they had these very slight accents. They were almost indistinguishable, but if you listened to them talk, you would hear them. Now, the girl and her two friends start getting along well, and she always saw them come across from the other side of the property. And as they were playing, the parents would occasionally look out, and they would see the daughter having a good time. Periodically, they would call them in for snacks. The daughter would go in, she would eat, go back outside, and keep playing. Now, the parents, seeing this behavior, were elated at this. The daughter had been pretty reclusive. She kind of kept to herself. So the fact that she was now more outgoing, the parents were really happy for her because there was a really serious adjustment period. Now, one day, the parents got really curious about meeting the kids, and so they encouraged their daughter to invite them over. So the daughter, thinking this would be a good idea as well, went to her friends one day as they were playing outside and invited them to come over. Now, the kids were a bit reluctant at first, and as they walked inside, the girl introduced them to her parents, and the parents were looking at the girl a little bit puzzled. The girl was like, "This is my friend, Leedle and Deedle, we'll call them." And the parents were like, "Honey, there's nobody there." And the girl was like, "Yes, they are." Now, the girl turned around, and much like her parents had noticed, Leedle and Deedle were not there anymore. So, a couple of weeks go by. The girl sees Leedle and Deedle outside again. She goes to greet them. She tells them how she's a little bit angry with them for not meeting her parents. And this is when the kids look at each other and they say that they apologize, but they can't. Now, the little girl gets frustrated with them and she's asking them why they can't meet her parents, and they don't have a good answer for her. And then she also goes on to ask them why they're dressed up like that. And Leedle and Deedle look at each other, and then they look at her and they're like, "We don't know." So a couple of days go by, the playing continues, the old friends get over whatever grievance they had with each other, and things are really cool. This is when things start to get really weird around the property. One day as Leedle and Deedle are playing, the two of them notice that there's something out in the distance, and it terrifies them. They run away. Now, as they're running away, their friend, who can't see whatever it is this thing is, starts to chase behind them. One, she's kind of pissed off that they left her, but two, she's nervous too because they're running from something. And this is when Leedle and Deedle's personalities start to change. At one time really cheerful, happy children, they now seemed more pensive, quiet, and fearful. Something was eating at them, and they couldn't talk about it. Now, the girl wanted to give them their space, but she noticed her friends had changed quite a bit since she met them. She also had questions like, why has she never been to their house if they're best friends? Why are they dressed the way they are? How come she's never met their parents? Why do they talk the way they talk? They sound funny. Now, like I said, it's not like she couldn't understand them, but their voices did sound really strange. At the same time, but unbeknownst to the little girl, her parents started to experience some really weird stuff around the house as well. Things would go missing, stuff would move, lights would flicker on and off, and this got them really curious about the house and the property they had moved on to. Now, like I said, the property they lived on was massive. New York's an old state and an old region, so of course it probably has its history. But as they started to look into the home's history, what they found shocked them. On the property, in the year 1700 or something similar, there was a group of Dutch in the area. They had established colonies, they had built buildings, they had structures everywhere. The problem with doing this is when you move into a place that's already occupied by a people, the people whose land you stole to build all of these things and make these new settlements might not be cool with what you're doing. And so, on one fateful night, the Dutch were slaughtered by the local native tribe that was there. No survivors. Everybody lay where they fell. And this included a number of children as well. Absolutely nobody was spared. Now, upon realizing that they had had no correspondence from the people of this village, more Dutch colonizers found themselves curious, and they went to explore the village that should have been full of Dutch. Except when they got there, they were devastated to find that everybody that should have been there, at least in their opinions, had been, again, no survivors. So they took records of all of the bodies, those who should have been, those who went on the charter. Everybody knew everybody. It's not like they didn't have correspondence with other Dutch in the area. But of the names of the families that were taken at the time, and there must have been perfect record keeping back then, there was a roster. A family of 4, a mother, a father, and 2 children, a boy and a girl whose names were Liedel and Diedel. Now, as the parents were finishing their research on the property, they were quickly connecting those dots. Their daughter always talked about 2 kids, a boy and a girl by the name of Liedel and Diedel. And as they had the realization, chills went down their spine simultaneously. Could it be maybe just a coincidence? She had invited Liedel and Diedel over, but it's odd that the parents, however many times she had attempted to do this, could never see Liedel and Diedel. She also made mention, their daughter, that Liedel and Diedel always had these weird outfits on. And the parents started to think about it. Could it be that Liedel and Diedel were dressed in attire that they were slaughtered in back in the 1700s, thus explaining the weirdness of the outfits they had on? And maybe what their daughter interpreted as a weird accent was really just a weird blend of Dutch and English. Could that be perhaps why she didn't always understand them, despite the fact that they were speaking English? To make matters even worse, it's not like the parents hadn't had their own supernatural experiences on the property. A shadow out of the corner of your eye, a dark spot moving across the horizon, people appearing to peek out of the woods periodically. But again, the property's massive. Maybe people come through there just to walk through and go on their way somewhere else. Anyways, I want to know what you guys are thinking about this one. Is it possible that the little girl was seeing the ghost of Liedel and Diedel? The property did appear to be quite old, so it wouldn't shock me if there were ghosts on the property, but it doesn't make it any less eerie, I suppose. Anyways, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think about these 3 stories. Let me know your favorite one in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video.